Welcome to the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I am Amber Romaniuk, emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. I am also the founder of amberapproved.ca. I support professional women achieve optimal health through mindful eating, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. This podcast provides the honest truth on what you really need to create body freedom. The No Sugarcoating Podcast provides information on healthy living, lifestyle changes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. Always seek the advice of your healthcare practitioner regarding your health and nutrition program. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 204 of the podcast. I hope you are enjoying the first few days of October. I just love fall personally. Fall is my favorite season. We've got, of course, the beautiful changing of the leaves, which happened abruptly because we got snow last week, which is pretty much all melted now. I love fall because I always go to my annual business retreat that my business coach holds in the mountains, which is super fun and grounding and amazing in all ways. Then we have Thanksgiving, which is next week here in Canada. Halloween, and then of course getting ready for the holiday season and for Christmas. I'm a huge Christmas nut, so I just love this time of year. It's so cozy, so beautiful, and it's a refreshing, I feel like cleansing kind of time of the year because we have the change in the season. So happy fall to everybody, and or if you're on the other side of the world, I think I would be saying to you, perhaps if you're in spring now, maybe spring going into summer. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you're enjoying the season that you're having. So this week in the podcast, I'm talking about exercise and hormone health, menopause symptoms, and gut health, and tips to support your hormone health. So I know last week I talked quite a bit about hormones, and I promised that I would talk a little bit about menopause this week. And I also wanted to touch a little bit more on the exercise piece again, because I just think that's so huge when it comes to our hormone health. And I wanted to talk about, of course, menopause, and also how gut health can impact menopause, because as I talked about last week, it has a huge impact on PMS, and it does have a big impact on gut health on menopause as well as PMS. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of the show for today's announcements. I do want to share one thing. So I am really excited to share that in alignment with the podcast theme from last week and this week, as well as fall, I am having a fall coaching sale to support you build mindful eating, overcome unhealthy emotional relationships with food, balance your digestion, balance your hormones, build self-worth and confidence with yourself so that you feel amazing inside, which reflects the outside. As well, I am offering a new hormone-based support package called Hormone Harmony. So if you are interested to learn more about hormone harmony, balancing your hormones and digestion for optimal health, or any of my other coaching programs to get the support that you need to overcome emotional eating, build a balanced relationship with food, gain body freedom, and these beautiful pieces that I've been talking about, maybe weight loss is a goal for you, then definitely email me at info@amberapproved.ca with the subject line Fall Coaching Sale. To learn more about coaching programs, we will talk about your health history a little bit, where you're struggling, where you're seeking support, and I'll be happy to answer all of your questions and provide you with some great information to help you to make an empowered decision that feels really good for you on your journey. This is a significant savings right now. It's over $1,000 on my 1 year and 6-month coaching program. So again, info@amberapproved.ca with the subject line Fall Coaching Sale. I really look forward to connecting with you. So let's dive right in. This is your podcast. If you're finding you're struggling with emotional eating, food addiction, digestive issues, inflammation, you suspect your hormones are out of whack, but you don't know what to do with them, self-care continues to be a struggle, and you are at the bottom of your priority list, you're struggling with your weight, it's been a roller coaster of ups and downs for years, welcome. Thank you for listening. I'm glad you're here because I will continue to dive into the habits and mindsets to help set you on a different path. Amber Approved offers private coaching for hormonal imbalances, weight loss and digestive issues, emotional eating, and more. Contact Amber at amberapproved.ca to book your 30-minute complimentary consultation today. So exercise and hormone health. So I talked about long time ago why I chose to quit exercising. And you've probably heard me share the story before about having high stress and having hormones out of balance. My cortisol was about 5-6 times higher than it was supposed to be. My progesterone was about 3 or 4 times lower than it was supposed to be. And my estrogen dominated and again went about 10 times higher than it was supposed to be. And I was pushing my body. I was continuing to exercise because I thought you had to exercise to maintain your weight or to lose weight. And the irony was, because of all the hormone imbalances and stress, I was gaining weight like crazy, even though I wasn't binge eating. And it wasn't until I made the decision for myself, solely on my own, to actually quit the gym and quit exercising to help support my hormone balance. So this is something that I chose to do for myself. For some of my clients, if their hormone imbalances are significant, I do support them in choosing mindful movement that is going to support the hormones coming into balance, support building energy levels, because I can tell you, if you are exercising and you're exhausted afterwards, or you have less energy after you finish exercising through the whole day than you did when you started, that is quite a prominent sign of potential hormone imbalances, especially that cortisol. So cortisol is the stress hormone, and we produce it from our adrenal glands, and we need to produce it to survive. And often we produce large amounts of it in short periods of time if we go into fight or flight mode or stress mode. Like, say you get cut off in traffic, or say you, say you were out in the woods and you saw a bear. Like, that fight or flight response comes on to protect you, to help you get more adrenaline through your body, to help you run away or to protect yourself. But it's just that we're having stress responses, now in modern day to absolutely everything. And the body handles and takes on a lot of stress load, whether it's like poor food, poor sleep, really over, booked schedules, big workload, negative self-talk, poor gut health. There's so many things, caffeine as well, that can throw the hormones out of whack, especially the cortisol. And so what ends up happening is, over time, these hormones can go out of balance. And if we continue to stimulate our bodies with things like caffeine and exercise regularly, whilst we may not realize the impact, it actually has quite a deep impact. So for me, what first off made my cortisol levels really high? Well, it was definitely going through the cycle of emotional eating, binge eating, and then restricting and limiting my food intake, or going on a really restrictive diet, and then feeling like I had to exercise 5 or 6 days a week, an hour every morning, around like 7 o'clock in the morning. I did, at least a half an hour of cardio and then some pretty intense weight training, because I felt like I needed to do that to compensate for the binging, and also that I had to, again, like, I didn't want to gain weight. I was stuck in that vicious cycle. So that's what really, pushed my levels to go really high, was that vicious cycle of the food addiction, the diet mentality, the perfectionism, wanting to look a certain way. And it's so interesting how I wanted to look a certain way and how it fueled all this behavior. And through my hormones way out of whack, I obviously at the time did not expect to do that. So after I finished binge eating and I was in recovery of my food addiction, that's when I discovered my hormones were completely out of whack. And like I said, I was really resistant to stop the exercise because of the limiting belief I had around needing to do it to lose weight or maintain your weight. And the irony is I haven't exercised faithfully at a gym. How long has that been now? 7 years? I think it's been about 6 or 7 years. And all I do is movement that I want to do. So if I have a treadmill, because weather can be fun where I live. I don't really feel like going out for a walk if there's a blizzard or the sidewalks get really icy. And this summer was really rainy. So I'm actually really happy that I got this treadmill, and my boyfriend and I love using it, because it's like, hey, I'm just going to hop on for 10 or 15 minutes and go for a walk. So I love walking, indoor, outdoor. And I've been doing some really great work with my lymphatic system, because I found out a while ago it was sluggish. So I got a little trampoline and I rebound. But I don't do either, because I need to exercise to burn calories. I don't see movement as that at all anymore. I see the movement as I get my circulation going. It's great to get your energy moving, get your body moving and you're limber. And then I stretch and to stay flexible. And I rebound, like I said, to help my lymphatic system. It's so fun. Like, I put on really fun music and bounce to the beat of it for like 5 or 10 minutes. And I feel so refreshed and energized afterward. But if I would have high cortisol levels still and be trying to do that, I probably would be quite tired afterward, because my heart rate does get up a little bit when I'm doing my rebounding. And that's also one of the reasons why I only do it for 10 minutes, because I'm not doing it to cardio workout to burn calories. I'm doing it for reasons to support my health. So I think one of the biggest things to really look at here is doing movement and doing movement that you love because it makes you feel good versus forcing yourself to do movement that you dread, you hate, you don't want to do, but you think that you need to look a certain way and that's the only way that you're going to get there. Often those kinds of movement, the really intense exercise, the HIIT training, long periods of cardio, some people can tolerate that greatly, but I find a lot of people do not. And they have a lot of health issues because of it, and a lot of symptoms and a lot of hormone imbalances. And so what ends up happening is the more you keep pushing your body, or you're training for a big race, but you didn't realize you had hormone imbalances in the first place, it often will just like innocently make those things worse. And then you can feel really tired, fatigued, lots of brain fog, poor memory, like you're putting the cereal in the cupboard and the milk in the fridge. You could be finding yourself really irritable out of the blue and snapping on your family. Some people, the brain fog gets so bad that they could like leave the stove on and leave the house and just completely have forgotten about it. So this cortisol piece can be huge. And if you're innocently, feeling like you're exercising to support your health, but you have these hormone imbalances, it can have a real negative impact. And part of that is because, a lot of people will wake up and do their workout first thing in the morning, and this works great for some people. And I used to do this as well because I wanted to get it out of the way. But again, remember, I was doing a lot of exercise that I was forcing myself to do. But your cortisol naturally should be the highest in the morning, and it shouldn't be all that high. But that's naturally when it's the highest because it's helping you to wake up and get your day going. So what happens is if you already have elevated cortisol, which is the stress hormone, so if it's already up above out of the what is the normal range first thing in the morning, and then you're waking up early, say you didn't have a good sleep, and then you're waking up early to go to the gym, that will produce a stress response in the body, and then you can end up with elevated cortisol more easily and you feel more tired. And then you go to the gym and you're doing really stimulating, intense movement, and then that produces more cortisol on top of it. So that is all of a sudden creating more of an imbalance and actually having a negative impact rather than having a positive impact. So it can be very easy and very innocent to do this. Like you may not even realize you're doing this, but if you're exercising and you're eating well and you don't have emotional eating struggles and you're finding you're gaining weight or you're gaining, abdominal weight, you have the brain fog, you have the low energy, you could sleep for 12 hours, but you don't wake feeling rested. You feel like your digestion is sensitive. You feel hungry all the time. You're craving salt, you're craving carbs. These can be some of the most common signs of potential like cortisol imbalance, especially tied to exercise or high stress. Because remember, exercise is a stressor. Whilst it's a good stressor for the body, our hormones need to be in a certain harmony or a certain balance for, certain kinds of movements to be a benefit. And if the hormones are out of balance, then that's when we need to adjust and restructure our movement routine to be supportive of balancing the hormones. And so that doesn't mean you don't ever move, but it means you may be taking more rest time, more time to do self-care. And if you feel really resistant around doing that, then it's important to understand what limiting beliefs or associations you have attached to I need to work out a certain amount to lose weight, or I can't not go to the gym. I have to go to the gym because I need my six pack. Like usually it's some external, more like superficial drive. And I think it's important that we work on that, because if it's having a negative impact on your health and you're struggling with the self-worth, body insecurity piece, we want to build the body security and the confidence and the self-love internally, because then you're probably more than likely going to decide, I actually don't need to go and do this kind of movement. I'm going to, again, do what makes me feel good. I always have that conversation with my clients, and often in the beginning, they're doing movement that they hate. They hate it, and they admit it to me, and I'm like, why are you doing it? And they share with me, well, because this is what I need to do to attain a certain physique or look a certain way or burn a lot of calories or make up for the emotional eating. And so that's why it's so important to understand like why you're moving the way that you are. And if you feel like you're not seeing results or you're feeling exhausted after your movement and you're just dreading it, like I would highly encourage you to get support to like investigate your hormones, talk about body image, and talk about why you need to move the way that you do. Because when my clients feel really safe in their body and their hormones balance and the digestion balances and they built healthy relationships with food and they're sleeping well, their symptoms all go away. Like I love getting to the point with a client where we go through the call and I ask them all the different symptoms, like how's your energy, your cravings, your digestion, your bowel movements, your sleep, hydration. And they're like, oh, I'm good. None of those symptoms. And it's just like, wow, your body is feeling so much more balanced, so much more safe. And that's when the protection comes off. So it's very, very, very powerful what can happen when we have a balanced cortisol level instead of too high or too low. Because if the cortisol gets too high or too low, The body's in a 24/7 fight or flight stress response, and your body could feel more puffy. You could feel more water retention, more inflamed. And again, that could make you feel like you're gaining weight or make you feel like your clothes are fitting tighter, but it actually could be that cortisol stress response that is having the impact. So I would say probably 75 or 80% of my clients have cortisol imbalance, whether it's too high or too low. And for the most part, walking them through the support to help balance it out over a certain period of time, like at least 6 months to a year, usually, sometimes a bit less, but it usually takes more time to balance cortisol because it's taken time to throw it out of balance. But then we see those levels regulate and we see the symptoms resolve. So it's very, very exciting. But I wanted to touch on the exercise piece because I think it's so key for you to choose movement that makes you feel good, that you love, that you can have fun with versus dreading it. Because as soon as you dread it and you say, I have to work out 5 or 6 days a week and you don't, then you're fighting with yourself, and the guilt and the shame around not going, that produces a stress response too. Right? Emotional eating produces a stress response because you're usually eating refined foods and eating an abundance of them. And then you're in negative self-talk. Negative self-talk fuels cortisol, right? So it's important for us to understand that this is an emotional and physical piece. This is not just physical. This is like, no, your emotions largely fuel stress hormone, especially if they're negative emotions. So, and then of course, what happens for a lot of people is their cortisol goes out of whack. And then because their adrenal glands need to keep producing cortisol, they steal those hormones from your other hormone glands. So then we have the thyroid being impacted, and then we see underactive thyroids, and then it becomes easier to gain weight again, and brain fog and struggles getting up in the morning, cold hands and feet all the time, not just from, it being cold, but from like, no matter what, you have cold hands and feet, thinning eyebrows, your hair, you feel like you have more hair loss. And again, if the body is more inflamed, so if you're working out regularly and your body doesn't have the time to rest and repair your muscles, because you produce an inflammatory response when you work out, especially when you're doing weight training. And so if you're not taking those breaks to let the muscles rest and repair, then you're increasing the inflammation load in the body, and that's a stressor on the body. So say you already have high inflammation because you have poor gut health or food sensitivities, and now you have more inflammation because your body is repairing your muscles. That can, again, put stress on the cortisol. So it's so important to know your current state of health to help you understand, what foods to have added more of, if you have food sensitivities to navigate, what kind of movement best serves you right now and what doesn't. It's just so important rather than guessing and trying different things and then feeling worse. And then another thing, of course, that happens is if you have cortisol imbalances, your immune health can be compromised. So as I mentioned last week, you may notice you catch more colds and flus. It takes longer to get over a cold and flu, especially, around these vulnerable cold and flu season times. And exercise suppresses the immune system mildly temporarily because of the stress response. So remember, if you're finding that you're struggling with your immune system, you may potentially also have a cortisol imbalance, and that may also be then you throw the exercise into the mix, and it's like, man, how come it's taking me weeks or months to get over my cold or flu? This potentially may be one of the reasons why. And I'm actually going to talk more about immune health in episode 205 next week. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. And so for some people, they overexercise to the point where their cortisol levels go so out of whack that the progesterone gets really low, and so you're skipping or missing your period. So I think it's so important to also understand how that can impact your cycle, and it's important to have a natural cycle every month to support the natural harmony and balance of the female body. So really, really important here. And you may also notice your PMS symptoms are getting worse, and that can, again, be a sign of inflammation, gut imbalances, or this cortisol imbalance. I often find as my clients balance their cortisol levels, their PMS symptoms get better and better. And as we balance the gut health, the PMS symptoms get better and better and go away. So really exciting on both notes there. And if you have had bad PMS and you're having bad PMS and you've had it for months or years and you haven't addressed your hormones, if you're transitioning into menopause, or if you're now in menopause and you struggle with bad PMS, you may have worse menopause symptoms. The No Sugarcoating podcast is proud to partner with Karina Organics, which is actually a staple product in my house. Karina Organics is an all-natural hair, skin, and body-based company based out of North Vancouver that you definitely need to know about. They've been in business for 50 years and have a top-rated product line available globally for hair, skin, and body. Their body, hair, and skincare products are, in fact, the cleanest available on the market and have been tested by EWG. All products are made fresh to order after you place your order online, which I absolutely love. What other company does that truly? Be sure to check out their fabulous products at www.karinaorganics.com. My favorite is their deep treatment citrus shampoo and conditioner, as well as their leave-in conditioner and their mint body wash. So you definitely have to check them out. I love them. I went fully clean with my body care and my shampoo and conditioner, and I really wanted to find products that worked well for my hair and body, and they definitely do. Again, that's www.karinaorganics.com. So I want to talk a little bit about menopause symptoms and gut health, and you may say, well, how do you know about menopause? You're however old you are, because I'm in my 30s. So yes, I haven't gone through menopause, but a lot of my clients are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so they either are entering, are in, or are finishing menopause. And so I've supported a lot of women experiencing these symptoms. And so it could be things, potential signs of menopause could be hot flashes, weight gain in the abdominal area, or just like stubborn weight gain. And it just doesn't seem like you can lose weight. And I know it's not because you're quote unquote aging. It's because there's imbalances that we need to address. As I mentioned before, my oldest client, being in their 60s and 70s, they've been able to balance all this stuff and lose the weight. So it's about getting this body to this safe place, this balanced state where we have the abilities to let go of that protection. Other symptoms could be, of course, you're starting to miss periods, poor sleep, vaginal dryness, mood swings, irritability, brain fog, tender breasts, headaches, low sex drive, low energy. You just don't feel like yourself. You're probably thinking, I think my hormones are out of whack because I just don't feel like myself. So some of the things that can make the menopause symptoms worse, just like the PMS. So if you're in PMS instead of menopause, you can kind of refer to this as well, because these things very much have an impact on both menopause or PMS and making those symptoms worse. So high caffeine intake. I often find high caffeine intake partially because caffeine is a stimulant. So it boosts cortisol levels, and we don't want to raise cortisol levels too high. But the higher your cortisol, and then if you're having caffeine, that will have a negative impact on your menopause symptoms. So you may notice your symptoms getting worse. Again, if you had a history of low progesterone, high estrogen, you may notice you have more hot flashes, you have more breast tenderness, or maybe you're struggling to lose weight. Those can be signs of that elevated estrogen, that estrogen dominance. So if you eat out of a lot of plastic containers and you're heating food up all the time in plastic, if you have a plastic water bottle, if you're using a lot of chemically laden like soaps and shampoos and conditioners, and skincare on a regular basis, this can all contribute to estrogen dominance and too high of estrogen levels. So definitely looking at like your toxic load that you're putting into your body, because let's remember, your liver has to filter through every single toxin that is absorbed into your body from our air, environment, skin, and what we're putting into our body. And that's a heck of a lot of toxins sometimes. So if the liver is already overwhelmed and overburdened, stuff just gets stored in the body and it spills out of the liver. These toxins spill out of the liver, and then they're storing in our cells. And then estrogen cells can become very toxic, and then we see like elevated levels of symptoms. So if you're in PMS and you're having tender breasts, that can be a sign of elevated estrogen again, and potentially low progesterone. And definitely, the low progesterone, the elevated estrogen, too high of testosterone, too high or too low, I think, of really any hormone can contribute to weight gain, I believe, or struggles losing weight. It's very rare that it's the opposite and people are losing weight really fast. Usually the only time that happens is with like high stress and people who limit their food intake, or if your thyroid gets extremely overactive, it's overstimulated, it's burning, your metabolism's burning too quickly. But that happens very rarely. It's usually more the opposite. But that caffeine intake stimulates the cortisol. And then again, it usually is it's a stimulant and a stressor on the body. Stress, what does stress do to the body? It makes your body respond with inflammation. inflammation to protect your body. So another thing with caffeine is we're usually adding like artificial sweeteners and sugars, and like people with dairy sensitivities, they're having dairy and all the other added ingredients. If you're subscribed to my newsletter, when I talked about what's in your pumpkin spice latte a couple weeks ago, there's like 30 ingredients. There should not be 30 ingredients in a pumpkin spice latte from like a chain coffee shop. So think of all the sugars and the things that are going into your body that may not, you may not even be able to pronounce, and think of the potential inflammatory response that your gut has. And then this makes the symptoms worse. Same with like refined sugar, chocolate, refined foods, fast foods, heavy salted foods. For some people, it's their food sensitivity. So if it's like peanuts, eggs, wheat, dairy, soy, corn, all of this produces that inflammation. And the more inflamed you are, often the worse the menopause or the PMS symptoms will get, because your body's in a heightened state of stress. And the more heightened state your body is in, usually the stronger, louder, or worse those symptoms get, because your body's going, I can't balance out. I'm trying to like do what I can to get balanced here, but there's a lot of blocks in the way. And so I have to try and compensate by, moving things around here, but these things aren't working. So then I'm going over here to try to do this, and it's impacting the hormones, and it's impacting the way my digestion, my liver works, and my nervous system. And that's why, people say, I don't know why these symptoms just keep getting worse. But often it is because there are multiple stressors in the body, physically and emotionally, and outside of us that are contributing. So one other thing with caffeine, a lot of coffee beans contain molds or funguses because it is a bean and they're sitting on a shelf. So it can be more likely. And so then you're taking in this like low grade mold or like fungus. And if you have candida issues or you have gut flora issues, it can contribute to that. And then the inflammation is increased, and that can increase your menopause symptoms. So I actually do suggest for most of my clients, because they have these hormone imbalances, to start to like lessen the caffeine intake. And I recommend suitable alternatives that are not caffeinated or have lower amounts of caffeine. But I just think that that's so important. Another thing, of course, that will make menopause symptoms worse is eating a lot of refined foods, not getting enough protein, not getting enough fat, not getting enough fiber. So your fruits and vegetables, your nuts and seeds. If you're a fan of beans and lentils, I like, brown rice and quinoa sometimes, but I'm not like massive into grains. I don't have them every day. I just find like my body wants them only a few days a week. And I know everyone's different, so you kind of have to honor what feels good for you. But fiber is important to have regular bowel movements, and bowel movements, daily bowel movements, are so important because it's that bowel movement that's catching and binding all these toxins, as excess cholesterol, and moving junk out of the body. So your bowels is an eliminatory system. And so if that's slow and you're not having daily bowel movements, you may be hanging on to more toxins than you need to. And that can have an impact on making your menopausal symptoms worse. So it's to just look at how these things can be a stressor. So fiber is so important to get the bowels going. Fats are important to get your bowels moving because they help you to kind of have a bit more of like a coating or a lining in your intestinal tract that helps things move along more easily. Healthy fats are also anti-inflammatory. So if you are struggling with inflammation due to gut imbalances, stress, cortisol issues, those healthy fats are just so important to help, again, calm inflammation. And they're so important for your hormone health, because if you're limiting your fat intake, believe it or not, your hormones are fatty-like substances. And if there's not enough fat in the body, your hormones are not going to produce or be able to function properly. Another thing that can make PMS and or menopause symptoms worse is poor sleep, lack of sleep, not enough sleep. Or maybe you're finding that you're waking up at midnight, 2, 3, 4 a.m. and you're wide awake and you can't fall back to sleep. Therefore, you're not rested. You wake up feeling irritable and grumpy. This can be a huge sign of hormone imbalances, whether it's progesterone, estrogen, thyroid, or cortisol being out of balance. I know when I was balancing my cortisol and my thyroid, man, I probably had a period of about 6 weeks where it was like clockwork. Every night I'd wake up at like 2 a.m, wide awake. And it was part of that regulation for me that my body, I guess, just needed to go through. But it's just very interesting. Then once things fully balanced out, slept like a baby ever since. But that's a huge sign. And of course, when you're tired, you produce a stress response. You're more puffy, you're more inflamed, and that can make those menopause symptoms worse. So I always, get my clients to monitor their symptoms and say, okay, do you notice your hot flashes get worse if you have a poor sleep? Or do you notice again that your hot flashes are keeping you up through the night? There are actually some really powerful, simple ways to completely be alleviated of hot flashes that I suggest to my clients once I know like their current state of health, and again, make sure those suggestions are appropriate to them. But getting enough sleep, staying hydrated, limiting your caffeine, and overcoming emotional eating are great places to start, and making sure you're getting lots of fruits and veggies, your good proteins, and again, your good fats and fibers, super important. So yeah, sleep is huge. Sleep is so important for hormone balance, maintaining and/or healthy weight loss, blood sugar regulation, and sleep is also extremely important when it comes to overcoming emotional eating. Because if you're tired, you get more into that I don't care mentality or that screw it mentality, and that can have a really, really interesting impact on what you decide to eat that day, because you're probably opting for more refined foods. I know for me, on the days where I barely slept for whatever reasons when I was struggling with my food addiction, I was totally going for all the refined carbs and sugary drinks and like baked goods. I wasn't making healthy food choices because I was so tired, I just didn't care, but then that just made it worse. And I noticed it made my PMS symptoms worse. If I had a better month and I didn't binge as much, my PMS would get better. But then if I had a couple weeks or a couple months where I was binging more, my PMS symptoms were way worse. And that brings me to another, drink that can make menopause or PMS symptoms worse is alcohol. So people always ask me, do you drink alcohol? And I say, well, I rarely do. I don't know. It just doesn't really do much for me. But like if my boyfriend and I are going to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary, or like maybe at Christmas, I'll have a drink or two. But like I have no desire to get drunk or get loaded or whatever you want to call it, because I love my body, and I personally just like can have just as much fun or more fun without doing that, but I'm not opposed to having a couple of drinks. And I'm not opposed to my clients, having drinks, but I think it's like pick the highest quality, and let's make sure that you're not using alcohol as a coping mechanism, because a lot of people realize that glass of wine they're having every night is to cope. But anyway, because alcohol is inflammatory, it's high in sugar, yeast, whatever, depending on what you're choosing, that has a big impact on the liver, and your liver plays such a huge role when it comes to your hormone function and creation. So again, if your liver is really stressed out and you're drinking, and or you notice that maybe you go on a vacation and you're just drinking more, which that's totally usually what happens, that's okay. But then you notice that your menopause symptoms get worse, or maybe again you notice your PMS symptoms are worse after that. Again, that's because there's been a higher toxic load in the body, more inflammation. So that's why it's important for us. It's not about perfection, it's about balance. I really believe in this balance between nourishing foods, lots of water, great teas, like really great, healthy, natural things. And then I also believe in healthy, mindful indulgence, where you're enjoying the drink or you're enjoying your favorite chocolate or your favorite ice cream. It's just about getting to this place of balance where it's like 80-90% of the time really nourishing. And then there's like 10 to 20% where you're allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to enjoy all of the beautiful, like mindful indulgence, but it's that it's mindful, and it's, we get it to this healthy medium versus it being all the time, or like going all out and having a free for all and throwing your health out the window. So that's a really important piece as well. I think that, I've already kind of touched on the exercise earlier, but what's so interesting with menopause and exercise is if you have the adrenal imbalance with the cortisol, or your thyroid maybe as well, or both, working out too much again can makes things go more out of balance because of that cortisol stress, and that can impact, like I said, the progesterone and the estrogen. So you may want to again pull back or go to like walking, maybe swimming, leisurely bike rides, doing more stretching, gentle yoga, restorative yoga to support calming the nervous system down. Things like that, I think, are just so much more supportive than feeling like you have to push your body, right? So I think it's just so important to look at your movement routine and to get support with it, with these recommendations if you feel like I just don't know where to start. So movement is a valuable piece, but it's also, we want to look at the kind of movement that you're doing. So, and then for some people, The symptoms can get worse if you have the gut flora imbalances or the digestive imbalances. So I want to talk about that because one thing that I notice with a lot of my clients is they have both. They have digestive imbalances and they have gut flora issues, gut health issues. And so whether it's candida, imbalance of unhealthy bacteria in the large intestine, they have, sluggish liver, they've got heartburn or acid reflux, they've got food sensitivities, bloating, gas, sluggish bowel movements, loose stools, diarrhea, all of the above or some of it. And then you notice you have psoriasis, eczema, acne, you have breakouts on your chin, your forehead. Like these can all be signs of poor gut health. And the more inflamed you are, if you have more physical pain, that can also have an impact. So I think it's important to know the state of your digestive health and really work toward supporting it and balancing it because it plays just such a vital role in your hormone health. So I often find that as I start with a client and I help them, if they're struggling with emotional eating, we deal with that. If they're not, then we, start with the digestion, mindful eating, making sure they're chewing their food properly to help aid in digestion, adding in more nourishing foods. As the digestion starts to feel better, one thing that my clients say to me is, wow, I'm noticing my hormone symptoms getting better, whether it's like menopause symptoms improving or it's PMS symptoms improving and going away. And again, that's because we're getting stressors out of the body. And the more physical symptoms we can get resolved and or really lessened, the more you're going to see your existing symptoms calm down. So I really want to assure all of you lovely ladies out there, or if you're a male listener and you have a wife or a girlfriend that is going through any of this, you're not crazy. There is nothing wrong with you. It's not all in your head. And regardless of who you've seen, whether it's been a doctor or any other kind of healthcare practitioner, don't settle for anything less than, we need to get to the bottom of this. And I'm going to help you do that because that's what I help my clients to do, is get to the bottom of why they're struggling with the symptoms they are so that they can gain freedom from them. That's part of body freedom. That's part of body confidence and feeling amazing in your body and loving yourself is working through the symptoms as well. So if you're noticing you have digestive issues and then again, like your sleep is poor, you're noticing your sex drive is really low, the brain fog keeps getting worse, your energy keeps getting lower, your irritability. Again, a lot of my clients describe to me as, I just don't feel like myself. I haven't felt like myself for a long time. So if that sounds like you, or you're noticing you're gaining more weight or your clothes are fitting tighter, the hot flashes are getting worse, your PMS symptoms are getting worse, like these are all signs. There's an opportunity that your body's speaking to you and saying, hey, I'd love to have your attention. There's a lot going on here. Are you willing to pay attention and take actions to do something about it to get the support? Because what I find, one thing that I do suggest, like with hormones and digestion, is there's so much information on the internet and a lot of it is false or not accurate. Some of it is, but you have to know your sources. I would suggest that you get support from somebody who can help you with your hormones and digestion or the emotional eating if you're struggling with that, because to read and to not know your current state of health or how to assess your current state of health, which is understanding all your symptoms and getting to the root as to why you're struggling with them. Then if you do the wrong things, like for example, if you have a high estrogen, maca root powder is great for your adrenal health and it's great for your progesterone. But if you have high estrogen, it makes estrogen higher. So it can be as simple as reading, oh, maca is good for my hormones, I should take that. But again, if you don't know that you have high estrogen and you start taking it and it makes it higher, then you're going to feel worse, right? So it's so important to get support and get proper recommendations that are going to help you specifically, rather than going online and reading a lot of what is generic and or scaring yourself with some of the potential symptoms and says, oh, it may be this. Like, don't do that to yourself, please. I highly suggest to not do that. But getting support, I think, is just so important with that. And supporting your gut health is so important to help with your menopause symptoms, your physical symptoms when it comes to your hormones. I mentioned reducing the caffeine earlier, balancing your gut flora, dealing with cortisol, shifting your exercise routine. I think those are important things to look at, and make sleep a priority. Make a healthy self-care routine for yourself to help you manage your stress. Getting stress levels down is so, so, so important. And you may say, well, Amber, I'm too busy. Amber, I have too much on my plate. I have a business to run, or I have an important career, or I have a family. And it's like, I get that. Everyone has a lot on their plate. But it's like, what kind of quality of life is it costing you to have these symptoms every day, or to be out of commission for 2 weeks out of the month because you have bad PMS, or that you don't feel like yourself and your moods are all over the place and you're rarely finding yourself to feel really happy and upbeat, or that you're so bloated that you don't want to have anyone see you and you feel like your clothes fit tight. Like, these costs add up quickly, really quickly. So I think it's so important to look at, okay, you're worth taking some time out of your busy day and all your other priorities to make sure you are taken care of. Because what do you really have if you don't have your health? Not having your health has a huge impact on every other area of your life, and you can only keep pushing through for so long. So I do think it's important to know if you're struggling with these symptoms, if you've been told it's just the way that it is and you have to accept it. I encourage you to not accept that as the answer. And I want you, again, to know that there are answers to these questions. There are solutions and there are ways to balance these pieces out. So I definitely, as a whole, ways to support your hormones are get support from somebody who can help you understand and educate you on where your hormone health is at and your digestive health. Also, I think it's important to deal with emotional eating, to deal with perfectionist mindsets, overachieving and people-pleasing mindsets, because again, those can have you putting yourself as a last priority, and then you're stressed and overwhelmed doing things for everyone else or trying to prove because of low self-worth. So we actually need to also deal with the low self-worth, because that driving force that pushes you to go all the time and not take a break and stay up too late and be on your phone and not get enough sleep, that's having a negative impact on your hormones. So it's often there's mindsets associated with these hormone imbalances as well. I think it's important to just take it one step at a time. So if you're not drinking enough water, slowly start increasing your water intake. If you find you need to start unplugging from your phone earlier before bed, start with something like that, right? Starting incorporating like more vegetables into your day, or start incorporating more fat, just like making a couple small changes at a time versus feeling like you have to do everything all at once. And I often suggest leaving what feel like the more difficult changes till the end. I also just suggest not going on any restrictive diets to help to balance your hormones, because it can make it worse if you don't know what's going on. And if you struggle with emotional eating, going on a restrictive diet can be very triggering and actually push you back into binge eating or emotional eating. So again, we want to avoid restriction, anything that's quick fix, and really be patient. I always say, what if you gave yourself at least a year to, make the changes, get onto a different path, take a different approach. It takes time. It took me 5 years to balance my hormones. And yes, I had a very deep, intense food addiction, but 5 years, right? It just goes to show you what the impact can be. And often I find for my clients, I'd say on average, it's like a 6 month to a year process to balance their hormones. For some, it may be a bit more. It just depends how out of whack things are, how out of balance the body is and what the current habits are. But again, all this is totally possible to shift. It's to just know that sometimes we get in our own way, and it's about us getting out of our way. So if you have questions about hormones, if this is resonating with you, I would highly encourage you to reach out. Email me at info@amberapproved.ca. Take advantage of the fall coaching sale. We can talk about the hormone harmony package. We can talk about all my coaching programs that I have available. This is a significant savings that I do have for the fall, so you definitely want to take advantage of it. Also, again, we booked that complimentary call. We have a great conversation. It is really, a lot of people say that they feel lighter. They feel like something has shifted for them. You always learn new things when you come into that complimentary call. So I definitely look forward to connecting with you there. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. The show notes can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/204. Make sure you go to amberapproved.ca, check out the new website, take the emotional eating quiz if you're struggling with that. There's going to be a really fantastic series of emails with different content that's going to come out for people who do take the quiz. So it's very informative and educational, and I think you'll really like it. Also, you'll be able to learn more about body freedom. And if you do want to book a complimentary call, you can do so right on my website. There's also a bunch of great new fall recipes that you're definitely going to want to check out, especially getting ready for Canadian Thanksgiving and just to be in the fall vibe, regardless of where you live. So check those out too. This is the last week to enter the worldwide giveaway to celebrate episode 200. I can't believe I'm already recording episode 204 of the podcast. So thank you for the reviews, the ratings, and the sharing that's happening on social media. So to enter, you can either leave a 5-star review on your podcast app with a description description and email me at nosugarcoatingpodcast@gmail.com to share the name you entered under. Or you can share about the podcast on your social media and make sure you tag me, Amber Romaniuk. That's my name, Romaniuk, just so I know that you've shared and I'll enter you in to win. The winner will be announced next week already. And you win my favorite Rocky Mountain Soap Company products, Herbaland vitamin gummies, a copy of my cookbook, and a surprise. And I'm not telling, I'm just going to send it to you. So it's going to be a surprise. So last week to enter, make sure that you do. And thank you to everyone who has entered and left ratings and reviews. If you have questions, you can submit them to info@amberapproved.ca. Again, I just ask that your questions are no more than 150 words in length, as health histories require more support and private coaching may be a better fit. If you have feedback, if you have podcast topic ideas that you want me to explore, please send them to me. I love your feedback. I want to hear what you have to say because, of course, I make this podcast for you guys. So grateful and thankful for every single one of you all over the world listening. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. As always, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health. So take action now. I look forward to connecting with you if you feel like reaching out. And I look forward to recording a whole new podcast to share with you guys again next week. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast and share it with your friends. You can find me at amberapproved.ca and follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Amber Romaniuk. Join me next Sunday for another brand new episode and another step toward body freedom.